Picture this. A 20-year-old college dropout stands before thousands of young conservatives, delivering a message that would reshape American political discourse for an entire generation. That young man was Charlie Kirk, and his book Youthquake represents one of the most provocative political manifestos of our time. But here's what's truly shocking about this story. Kirk didn't just write a book about youth engagement in politics, he created a blueprint for generational warfare that millions would follow. Youthquake emerges from the mind of Charlie Kirk, a political activist who transformed from college student to conservative movement leader before his 21st birthday. Written in 2014, this book captures Kirk at a pivotal moment when he recognised that America's political future hinged entirely on winning the hearts and minds of young people. The timing couldn't have been more critical. Obama's presidency had energised young progressives, and Kirk saw conservative values losing ground on college campuses nationwide. Kirk's central thesis revolves around what he calls a generational political awakening. He argues that young Americans possess unprecedented power to reshape the political landscape, but only if they understand how to harness their collective influence effectively. The book serves as both a wake-up call and a practical guide targeting readers who feel disconnected from traditional political structures while yearning for meaningful change. What makes Youthquake particularly compelling is Kirk's insider perspective on youth political movements. Having founded Turning Point USA at age 18, he brings first-hand experience to discussions about grassroots organising, campus activism, and digital age political engagement. The book reflects his journey from frustrated student to movement architect, offering readers a roadmap based on real-world successes and failures. Kirk writes with the urgency of someone who genuinely believes America's democratic future depends on immediate youth political engagement, making this book feel less like academic theory and more like a call to arms. Youthquake begins with Kirk's personal awakening to conservative politics during his teenage years, establishing his credibility as a voice for young Americans seeking political direction. He methodically builds his case that traditional political parties have failed to connect with younger generations, creating a dangerous vacuum that threatens America's democratic foundations. Kirk doesn't merely criticise existing systems, he provides specific strategies for young people to reclaim their political influence. The book's core argument centres on what Kirk identifies as systematic failures in political education and engagement targeting young Americans. He contends that progressive movements have dominated youth political spaces not through superior ideas, but through better organisation, messaging and technological adaptation. Conservative voices, according to Kirk, have allowed themselves to be marginalised on college campuses and in digital spaces where young people form their political identities. Kirk dedicates significant portions of the book to practical activism strategies, drawing from his experiences building Turning Point USA into a national organisation. He emphasises the importance of peer-to-peer influence, arguing that young people trust messages from their contemporaries more than traditional political figures or media personalities. This insight forms the foundation of his recommended approach to youth political engagement. Throughout Youthquake, Kirk maintains that generational change doesn't happen through top-down mandates, but through grassroots movements that understand how to speak authentically to young audiences. He challenges readers to move beyond passive political consumption toward active participation in shaping political discourse. The book serves as both inspiration and instruction manual for young Americans who want to impact political outcomes but feel uncertain about where to begin their engagement journey. Kirk opens his political awakening narrative by describing his transformation during high school, when he first encountered conservative economic principles through independent research. This personal journey becomes the template he recommends for other young people seeking political clarity. He emphasises how questioning mainstream narratives led him to discover philosophical foundations that aligned with his values and observations about human nature and economic reality. The founding of Turning Point USA represents the book's most significant practical example of youth political engagement. Kirk details how he identified a gap in conservative campus presence and decided to create an organisation specifically designed to reach college students through their preferred communication channels. He describes the challenges of building credibility as a teenager trying to influence political discourse, including skepticism from established conservative organisations and hostility from progressive-dominated campus environments. Kirk devotes considerable attention to what he calls the campus free speech crisis, arguing that universities have become ideologically hostile environments for conservative students. He provides specific examples of conservative speakers being disinvited, students facing academic penalties for expressing non-progressive views, and campus policies that systematically favour left-leaning perspectives. These examples serve to illustrate his broader point about institutional bias affecting young people's political development. The book explores Kirk's strategies for effective political messaging to young audiences, emphasising authenticity over polished presentation. He argues that young people can detect manufactured messages quickly and respond better to genuine passion than professional political communication. Kirk shares stories of successful campus events where honest discussion about controversial topics led to meaningful political conversations and changed minds. Economic messaging forms another crucial component of Kirk's youth engagement strategy. He dedicates significant space to explaining how progressive economic policies ultimately harm young people through increased debt, reduced opportunity, and diminished personal freedom. Kirk argues that conservative economic principles offer better long-term prospects for young Americans, but these benefits must be communicated through relatable examples rather than abstract policy discussions. Kirk addresses the role of social media and digital platforms in modern political engagement, arguing that conservatives must adapt to new communication technologies or risk irrelevance with younger generations. He provides specific recommendations for using social media effectively while maintaining message integrity and building authentic relationships with potential supporters. The book examines successful conservative youth movements from recent history, analysing what made them effective and how their strategies can be adapted for contemporary political challenges. Kirk studies movements that successfully mobilised young people around conservative principles, extracting lessons about leadership, messaging and organisational structure. Finally, Kirk presents his vision for sustained conservative youth engagement beyond single election cycles, arguing that lasting political change requires building institutions and networks that can influence multiple generations of young Americans. Political engagement begins with personal education and intellectual curiosity rather than partisan loyalty. Kirk emphasises that young people should develop their political views through independent research and critical thinking, rather than accepting inherited beliefs or popular opinions. This foundation enables more authentic and persuasive political advocacy. Peer influence dramatically outweighs authority figures in shaping young people's political perspectives. Kirk demonstrates how messages delivered by contemporary voices carry more weight than traditional political figures or media personalities when reaching younger audiences. This insight suggests that effective political movements must prioritise developing young spokespeople and messengers. Campus environments require specialised strategies because they operate under different rules than broader political discourse. Kirk provides specific tactics for navigating university settings where conservative views may face institutional resistance. Success in these environments demands understanding academic culture while remaining true to core principles. Digital communication platforms offer unprecedented opportunities for political engagement, but they require authentic rather than manufactured messaging approaches. Kirk shows how social media can amplify political messages when used genuinely, while warning against corporate-style communication that young audiences instinctively reject. Economic arguments resonate strongly with young people when presented through practical examples rather than theoretical discussions. Kirk demonstrates how abstract policy debates become compelling when connected to real-world consequences affecting young people's daily lives and future prospects. Building sustainable political movements requires developing organisational infrastructure that can outlast individual leaders or election cycles. Kirk's experience creating Turning Point USA illustrates how institutional thinking enables long-term political influence beyond temporary campaign efforts. Free speech advocacy provides common ground for engaging young people across political divides because most value intellectual freedom regardless of ideological differences. Kirk shows how defending open discourse can create opportunities for broader political conversations. Personal relationships and trust form the foundation of effective political persuasion, making investment in genuine connections more valuable than mass marketing approaches. Kirk emphasises how individual relationships multiply into broader political influence through network effects. Leadership development within youth movements ensures continuity and growth over time, preventing dependence on single charismatic figures. Kirk demonstrates how training emerging leaders creates multiplication effects that expand political movements organically. Integration of political engagement with practical life skills makes activism more sustainable and attractive to young people who want their efforts to contribute to personal development alongside political goals. Youthquake stands as more than just another political book. It represents a generational manifesto that continues influencing American political discourse years after its publication. Kirk's central insight about the untapped potential of youth political engagement proved remarkably prescient, as subsequent election cycles have demonstrated the decisive impact of young voter participation. His emphasis on authentic communication and peer-to-peer influence has become standard practice across the political spectrum. The book's lasting value lies not in its specific policy recommendations, which naturally evolve with changing circumstances, but in its framework for understanding how generational political change occurs. Kirk's focus on building institutions, developing leaders, and maintaining authentic communication provides a template that transcends particular ideological movements. These principles apply equally to any group seeking to engage young people in political processes. Perhaps most significantly, Youthquake captures a pivotal moment in American political development when digital communication began reshaping how young people engage with political ideas. Kirk's early recognition of these technological shifts positioned him as a pioneer in political communication strategies that have since become mainstream approaches. The book challenges readers to move beyond passive political consumption toward active participation in democratic processes, regardless of their particular ideological preferences. This call to civic engagement resonates across political divides and continues inspiring young Americans to take ownership of their political futures rather than remaining spectators to decisions that will shape their lives for decades to come.